Welcome back, GED scholars, to another RLA video where we are going to talk about word usage. And so as you can see from the screen, the Reasoning Through Language Arts exam will include word usage, sentence structure, transition words, capitalization, punctuation, and apostrophes for some of your questions. So some of the questions on the exam, they'll have a sentence or a passage, but then they will have words that are missing, and there'll be like a drop down. And so when you go to the multiple choice section, they're basically asking you, well, in this sentence that you just read, what word should go where we have your drop down list where you can choose that word? And so you want to be able to make sure that you understand homonyms, you understand parts of speech, that whole sentence structure when it comes to the multiple choice section. And you also want to remember that when it comes to the RLA exam, you do have the extended writing response, which is going to be the portion of the exam. They will give you two different passages on the same topic, but based off of those passages, you need to write an essay using American English that basically shares with them, okay, based on what I read and the evidence that is being presented to me in each passage, which one has the stronger argument? We have a video all about that, the rubric and everything, so make sure you check that out. Getting back to this video, we are going to talk about word usage. We're going to talk about homonyms and the parts of speech. The noun-verb agreement, because it is a little bit lengthier, will be in a different video, so make sure that you check that out if you need help with noun-verb agreements. So let's go ahead and get into the session. So first up, let's talk about homonyms. And I know you might be thinking, what are homonyms? Why do I even need to care about it? Because I will tell you, you will have at least one question that pertains to homonyms. So homonyms are words that are going to sound alike, they are spelled differently, and they have different meanings. And as you can see from the screen, you're going to be asked to correct these types of errors with these frequently confused words. And I know that some of you might think that, okay, well, I understand the concept, but what are some examples? We, of course, are going to turn to the internet to help us because, as I've told you numerous times, please use technology wisely to study for these exams. I came over to Google and I typed in homonyms, and of course, it's going to give me a definition. It usually does that at the beginning. You can click on the speaker to help you hear the word if you are having a hard time pronouncing the word. But then when we go down here, folks, I want to click on what are 20 examples of homonyms. So when I click on it, it says here are some homonyms. The nice thing, folks, is because there's a lot of homonyms within the English language, you want to make sure that you review this. Do not try to memorize this list, but understand that when it comes to this RLA exam, they might decide to use this bear that we see right here, B-A-R-E, instead of the B-E-A-R, and it should be B-E-A-R. So you want to make sure that you're aware of homonyms and the fact that on this GED exam, they might give you a sentence where they're using one word, but you need to know the correct word that's supposed to be there. It sounds the same, but as you can see, folks, the spelling is different and the meaning is different as well. And folks, if you don't know about Quizlet, Quizlet is an awesome website. And the simple stuff that you can do is at no cost. You don't have to pay for anything. But they're also study tools that have been created by other folks. And it's basically out there for you to use for free. So these are flashcards. So it'll just basically help you test your knowledge of these different homonyms. So the verb is to receive willingly. And then you click the card to flip it, and you would see the word accept, because to accept something, A-C-C-E-P-T, means to receive it willingly. I accepted the award. I accept your apology. So then you would click and you would see the homonym, which is accept. But this accept excludes something. So I love music except whatever it might be. So as we just saw, obviously there's a lot online that can help you. I definitely want you to make sure you purchase a study guidebook so then you have some ability to practice all of these skills that you're learning. But of course, if you're struggling to purchase a guide, a study guide, by all means, please make sure you are using the internet to help you out with your studying. But let's practice really quickly. So this first question reads, this is our fourth meeting on the topic of funding. And so we have two words in the parentheses, both are pronounced fourth. This first one that we see right here, this fourth, this is talking about the fourth, like a numeral value, versus the second one, FORTH, fourth means to move forward. So this is our fourth meeting on the topic of funding. So the correct homonym that we would use here is this first one, that is fourth, the numeral number 4. The second sentence reads, we don't know any other sources of funding. So this sentence is basically saying that they don't know something. They're not in tune or in line with what is going on or the other sources of funding. So this first one here is the opposite of yes. The second one is the no, KNOW, is having knowledge of something. So when you read this sentence, which one would you think that it is? And if you said, I would choose the second no, you're absolutely correct. The third sentence reads, the director of the organization brought up this whole issue. Well, this first hole that we see, HOLE, is like if you're walking along and you see a hole in the ground and you don't want to step in it because you might fall into the hole or you might trip. That's the first one. The second hole that has the W starting off the word is talking about an entirety. So if I ate the whole cake, that means there's no crumbs left for you. So when we read this sentence, which whole do you think we're supposed to choose? Correct, the second one, because the first one is talking about something in the ground that you could fall into or you can end up hurting yourself if you were to step into it. The fourth sentence reads, next week, we plan to submit a proposal. And so we have two different ways to spell week in the parentheses. We have one in the front that has two E's, and then we have WEAK. The first week, this is talking about the 7 days that we all know of, right? The Sunday through Saturday. This is how that week, a calendar week, is spelled. The second week is the opposite of being strong. So when we read the sentence, which week do you think we're supposed to choose? Correct, the first one. Because the second one, as I mentioned, is the opposite of strong. And so if you were to read that sentence with the second week in there, hopefully your mind will go to the fact that it might sound correct, but that spelling is incorrect. They're using that wrong word. So as I mentioned earlier, you will need to correct sentences using correct English grammar. So you will have to deal with noun verb agreements. And so noun verb agreement errors are when the noun doesn't agree with the verb, as that term or as that phrase shares with us. But there are a lot of folks who might struggle with understanding what a noun is, understanding what a verb is. So we are actually going to cover the 8 parts of speech before we jump into noun verb agreements, let alone sentence structure. So the 8 parts of speech are important for you to know because it's going to help you write your sentences when it comes to the extended writing response. And when it comes to the multiple choice portion of the exam, like I mentioned, they will give you sentences that are incorrect. They are written grammatically incorrect or they're missing a word and you need to choose the correct word for the answer. So as we see, there are 8 parts of speech. We have noun, verbs, adjectives, adverbs, pronouns, articles, prepositions, and interjections. And so when it comes to really understanding English grammar and knowing how to use it correctly, you don't need to memorize this list, but you need to be mindful that the words you're going to use when you write this sentence is going to be filled with at least 2 of these. And these 2 are where you see the arrows, the noun and the verb. Every sentence needs a noun and a verb. For example, these are 2 sentences. Are they simple sentences? Absolutely. Is this a sentence that you would think like a child would write? Yes. But I want you to understand these are sentences because there is a noun and there is a verb. So when we come back up to the 8 parts of speech, we see up here that a noun is a person, place, or thing. You are a noun. Well, you are a proper noun, I should say, versus if we say that guy or that female or that leader, whatever it might be, those are all nouns. But once you talk about specific people, then you have a proper noun. But a noun is a person, place, or thing. Verb is an action word or the state of being. If you're like, what is the state of being? So verbs that are the state of being are the verbs like I am, you are, he, she is. So these are state of beings. And it's basically a verb saying that, hey, I don't need to actually show action. The very fact that I exist is a verb of itself. So am, are, is, these are also verbs. So when it comes to writing a sentence, you need to include a noun and a verb. That's why John ran, Sally jumped are acceptable as sentences. Once again, they are simple sentences that you would expect from a child, but nonetheless, they're sentences. So really quickly, let's look at the other 8 parts of speech. So we have adjectives. Adjectives are words that are going to describe a noun. So let's say we had the noun boy and we had the verb run, my adjective is going to describe the noun. So I might say that it is a short boy or a quick boy. These are all words, these adjectives are going to describe my noun. Versus the next part of speech that we see, adverb describes the verb. Well, if this boy runs, and we could even add the adjective now, if this short boy runs, well, how does he run? Whatever word or words we use to describe how that running is taking place will be our adverb. We could say he slowly or he quickly. And you will start seeing, folks, when you really understand the 8 parts of speech, adverbs, these words end, most of them, not all of them, end in ly. Next up, we have our pronouns. So in English American grammar, our pronouns takes the place of a noun. So when it comes to this GED exam, folks, they are grading you on how well you know American English grammar. I understand that you might have your own personal views. The exam is going to be testing you on your knowledge of how to use these 8 parts of speech. And so if you give a pronoun incorrectly based off of a belief versus based off of the rules, they are going to mark off points from you. They will deduct points. It is not wise during this exam to stray away from American English grammar because, folks, the goal is for you to pass the exam. And so when we use pronouns, pronouns are going to take that place of the noun because when we read, we don't want to always hear that noun or always want to hear that proper noun. For example, if we have the sentence, John ran, John went to the store, John bought apples, John took those apples home, John baked a pie, you're going to get really tired of that writing because you're going to be like, why do they keep saying John, John, John? Why can't they introduce that pronoun? And you might read something that is better written that would say John went to the store, he bought apples, and then John went home. Do you know what I mean? We're bringing in those pronouns to kind of take our writing from being so static to being something that the reader can enjoy and get through. And so as you can see from your screen, there are 3 different types of pronouns. We have subject pronouns, object pronouns, and possessive pronouns. And we have them singular versus plural. And let me just kind of do that for you. So whatever you see on the left is used. They are single pronouns that are going to replace single nouns. So for example, we're talking about this boy, his name is John. You see that right here because in an American English grammar, John is one individual person. So you would use that pronoun he. And so when we have the subject pronoun, these are the pronouns that we know. They replace the subject of the sentence. So I have my single column and my plural as well. We also have first person, I, we, second person, you, third person, he, she, it, and the plural version of that is they. The second type of pronoun, object pronouns. And object pronouns replaces the object of the verb or of a preposition. So we talked about how a simple sentence can have a noun and a verb and we're good to go. But as you get older, as you get better with writing sentences, you will attach an object to that verb. So an object of a verb is on the receiving end of that verb. So if I have something here where I write, John gave Sally a book. John is going to be my noun, that is my subject. Gave is my verb. I'm going to put a V over it. And what did John give? John didn't give Sally. John gave a book. And who did he give that book to? He gave that book to Sally. So Sally is on the receiving end of John's giving. So if I didn't want to say John gave Sally a book, but instead I wanted to use a object pronoun, I would say John gave her a book. So hopefully that kind of makes sense as to what an object pronoun is within that sentence. And then we have possessive pronouns. And possessive pronouns, as you can read, replaces a possessive noun. And we have those pronouns on the right, so make sure you are understanding what those pronouns are. And as we can see from the screen, here are some examples. So when we have a subject pronoun replacing the subject, we have the example, George called home. What is my noun? What is my subject? George's, and he's a proper noun. That's why the name is capitalized. So I'm just going to write, or I'm going to just place a noun. Called home. So what is my verb? My verb is called. What's on the receiving end of that verb? Home. So this is going to be my object. Well, then it's not just this one sentence, they add more information. But instead of using George, they brought in that subject pronoun, he. He was worried. Imagine if they didn't use he and it read, George called home. George was worried. Do you see how it's kind of like, why couldn't you have used the pronoun instead? It's better writing, folks, if you start using these pronouns to help the reader get through whatever it is you're writing. So that does mean when it comes to your extended writing response, you want to make sure you are using the correct pronoun to replace the subject, the object, whatever it is in your sentences that you're trying to share. But let's look at the second example for object pronouns, which once again replaces the object, whatever's on that receiving end of the verb. So our example is George called Mary. He was worried about her. So George is my noun, called is my verb. Mary is my object now because she is on the receiving end of the verb called. He was worried about her. So what is my verb? And we have two, folks. He was worried. And this is a helping verb, but don't worry about that right now. But we know those are verbs. What's at the receiving end of the verb? Mary is. But instead of saying he was worried about Mary, they introduced that pronoun, that object pronoun right here when they decided to use her instead. Also, as a side note, just so you know, about is a preposition. And if you're like, what's a preposition? We're about to go back up to our 8 parts of speech, and I'll cover what a preposition is in a moment. But last and not least, possessive pronouns. So the example reads, George needed Kelly's number. He called home to get her number from Mary. So Kelly's up here has the apostrophe S. And there's 2 reasons we use an apostrophe. This little, what I like to call the northern comma. It's at the top. So apostrophes are used for contractions, which this is not. It's also used for possession, to show possession of something. So it's Kelly's number. But instead of saying he called home to get Kelly's number from Mary, bringing up her name again, we just brought in and we introduced Kelly again by using that possessive pronoun her. Coming back to our 8 parts of speech list. So we talked about pronouns. Next up, articles. Articles are specific adjectives like the words a or an or the. And then, as I promised, prepositions is next on the list. So prepositions show relationships between nouns. And there are lists that we can definitely memorize, but I don't think you should memorize it. I think you should understand or be able to identify preposition. When we come online, I searched Google for prepositions. Of course, AI Overview is going to explain prepositions for us. We see right up top, it says it shows the relationship. It can indicate time, place, location, things like that. More important though, folks, is I want you to come down here and wherever you see where are the 10 examples of prepositions, what are the 25 most common prepositions, that's what I want you to click on. And I want you to see the list of words that they have. So this is sharing compound prepositions, in front of, on top of, out of, in spite of. Once again, it's important for you to know that these prepositions, all these words right here, I don't want you to try to memorize them. I want you to understand that these are the type of words that show relationship between 2 nouns, whatever it might be. So don't try to memorize this, but read the list, understand them. And then as I've mentioned, it's one of the benefits of having a study guide is that they will test you on these different prepositions. If you're like, lady, I can't afford a study guide book right now, totally okay. Where do I tell you to turn to? I ask you to just use the internet to the best of your abilities because folks, there are different lists that you can pull up. If you look to the right, The link to Khan Academy is being shared with you right here. If you haven't used Khan Academy, I highly suggest you do. So if we just did prepositions, I can do examples, and of course, they're just going to continue to give you as many examples as possible. Once again, don't try to memorize it, but understand them. So which sentence is correct? We have A that reads, Linda and me went to the movies, or B, Linda and I went to the movies. So when I see these sentences, I notice that we have two different uses of pronouns. We have me up here and I down here. Well, because I've reviewed the pronoun list, I know that me is an object pronoun. And when we have object pronouns, that means there's something on the receiving end of the verb. Well, the verb in both of these sentences is went. Is me correct when we're talking about this verb went? Is Linda wanting to me? Am I the receiving on a receiving end of the verb? And the answer is no, I'm not. What is happening is that I am actually like Linda, I'm the subject of the sentence. This is a compound subject sentence. And so instead of using me, which is the object pronoun, I need to use the subject pronoun. Let's look at another example. We saw Linda and he at the movies, or we saw Linda and him at the movies. Well, both sentences are the same, except at the first one, we have the pronoun he versus the second one, we have him. And the same as the first example, he is going to be a subject pronoun versus him is going to be an object pronoun. Now that we look at our sentence, is he or him on the receiving end of the verb? Well, what's the verb? Saw. So what's on the receiving end? Well, Linda and him. Automatically, what do we know? Just by saying that, what is on the receiving end, we know that B is our correct answer. It has two direct objects, Linda and him, so we use that object pronoun, not the subject pronoun. And if you, for example, took out Linda and you were like, we saw him at the movies, right? You wouldn't say we saw he at the movies. You would say we saw him at the movies. So here's another example, and I want you to do this on your own. So please make sure you pause the video after you read it, think about what the correct answer is, and then start it back up because I'm about to show the answer right now. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So hopefully you got both of these correct. If you struggled with them, understanding the pronoun that needed to be used, please make sure you go online, try out Khan Academy, watch some other videos, get a good understanding of what is being shared in this video because you will be tested on it. Thanks for watching the first video in the grammar and language series that we have within the Reasoning Through Language Arts exam, where we talked about homonyms, we learned about the parts of speech, and as I mentioned, folks, you will be tested on whether or not you can identify words that are used incorrectly. So you want to make sure you know your homonyms, you know your parts of speech, and that when it comes to the extended writing response, you are using all of that information to help you structure your response. You're being tested on your knowledge of using correctly American English grammar. You know what you're doing, folks. You've got this. Keep your head up.